Oh, good God.
Who didn't mute their phone?
Some gay guy.
Yeah.
And we're off to a good start already.
Contempt for the listeners. Hello to all you Patriots out there in podcast land, and welcome to episode 177 of Canadian Patriot Podcast, the number one live podcast in Rhodesia. We're recording on April 8th, 2019.
In the show notes instead of editing. I'm Marty, hunter and sports shooter in rural southern Ontario.
I'm Gavin, a business owner, gun owner, hunter, atheist, volunteer, first responder, CCFR field officer, and recently a Stop the Bleed instructor. And I'm also channeling the spirit of Ian Smith this evening.
I'm Better Andrew, a recovering librarian, a competitive snoozer, and a computer instructor at betterandrew.biz.
Hi, I'm Benny. I'm the token Torontonian and an amateur shooter.
Tim's doing things out of order, so I'm
You go
Andrew.
last?
Jesus. I'm a recovering libertarian, competitive shooter, and a firearms instructor at Ragnarok Tactical.
I'm a liberal Pim. I'm a liberal husband, father of three. I'm a sports shooter, and I'm an RSO for Op Missile. I'm also the proud descendant of immigrants.
All right, we'd love to hear your feedback about the show. Feel like that's more stronger worded than we actually care, but please visit CanadianPatriotPodcast.com/feedback, or you can email us at feedback@CanadianPatriotPodcast.com. That's definitely a monitored email address and won't be ignored. As always, go ahead, Gavin.
What? I 100% read the emails that come to that.
It's true, he does. But I guess, after you've sent us some feedback and told us all about how Marty has a wonderful speaking voice and incredible diction, you can check out the podcast on Facebook.com/Canadian Patriot Podcast and Instagram at Instagram.com/Canadian Patriot Podcast.
We need your help. To support the show, visit patreon.com/CPP and become a patron. You can get a better quality version of the show for just $1 per episode. The more you pledge, the better the rewards are. Show you're not a communist. Buy CPP to shoot for just $19.99 plus shipping and theft. Visit CanadianPatriotPodcast.com homepage and follow the link on the right.
The new guy trying to show off.
It's time for my segment, which is What Are We Drinking? Every week, What Are We Drinking is brought to us by Arrowhead Coffee. Arrowhead Coffee is owned and operated by Canadian Armed Forces veterans. They love our country, the true north, strong and free, their family and friends. Join Arrowhead Coffee on their hunt for the perfect brew to raise morale and bring that feeling of home to you no matter where you are. A portion of all profits helps Canadian Armed Forces members, veterans, and their families. And that takes us to What Are We Drinking? And we're going to do that on my screen from left to right. And we're starting with younger Andrew.
I've got various different ciders. You watch.
That's nondescript. I applaud your
Okay,
efforts.
Recorder Leg Premium Swedish Cider and Thornbury Village Cider.
Thornbury's good, and I'd be interested in trying the other one.
It's good if you like
Swedish cider.
Now, is that a leftover from when you ran over to the Thornbury Cidery to pick that up? Or are these...
he still has that at his house unless he drank it.
Safe to assume it's still at Tyler's house.
Yeah, unless he thought it was a Blue Moon by accident.
That's the thing that can happen. Let's, Gavin, what are you drinking?
I am drinking Crown Royal and Coke Zero this evening.
No more ghetto hooch?
No. Although Crown Royal isn't exactly, high society.
Not low society. It's better than Kool-Aid.
Fair. Marginally.
Wow. Marty, what are you drinking?
I have Oban whiskey today.
That's a Scotch whiskey, isn't it?
Right. See, Marty's the highbrow one.
I thought you didn't like Scotch.
I don't.
Not particularly.
All right. Well, I'm glad we got that squared away.
This is horrible.
Never again.
Explains the whole demeanor.
where were we at? Benny, what are you drinking?
I finished a Guinness. Well, I was surprised to find
Nice.
it had something in the can. It's the first time I guess I drank a Guinness, and I was like, what the heck did they put in my can? So
Ping
that
pong
was an
ball.
interesting surprise.
Ping pong
Yeah,
ball. Yeah.
Yeah. To help with
Interesting.
the pour, to give you that proper like Irish beer head on it.
Yeah, it holds the nitrogen.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So
It's
the
an
nitrogen
RFID chip.
isn't released into the nitrogen isn't released into the beer until the moment you open the can.
That is cool.
Yeah. And then you can
Science.
play ping pong with it later.
I was wondering why it tasted a little flat, but that could have just been my perception of a stout, I guess.
How does it hold the paddle?
With great difficulty.
Lots of duct tape.
Short
Yeah.
shorts.
Yeah.
Tim, what are you drinking?
I'm drinking Crown Royal because I'm a dirtbag and reverse osmosis water.
I don't understand the sudden hate for Crown Royal.
Because they haven't given us any sponsorship money, damn it.
I still love you, Crown Royal, and
No,
all of your various flavors, even the
No.
weird apple one.
That apple one is delicious.
40 Creek.
The apple one is weird.
That's where I
Yeah,
draw
40
the
Creek.
line.
That's a
40
solid.
Creek.
That's solid. All right. I'm drinking Coors Banquet, the banquet of beers. Mostly I had Coors in the fridge. Let's move into some news. We're going to start with Ontario's lack of education. Got a bunch of different articles. They're all related. Toronto Sun: Ontario considers mandatory annual math testing for teachers. CBC: Ontario students stage province-wide walkout to protest education changes. Another one from the CBC, in their words, why Ottawa high school students walked out. And another one from the Toronto Sun: the deep cuts in education are anything but. That's from Brian Lilly. So they're all sort of in the same vein. Let's start with mathematics. There's been
Specifically the testing for the teachers.
specifically the testing for the teachers. There's been a discussion in the province of Ontario, in the Premier's office and in our chambers of government, discussing the opportunity, if you want to call it that, to ensure that the teachers are up to snuff, whether they're teaching math or not. Students in Ontario have historically been doing worse and worse at standardized testing, and part of the standardized testing is mathematics.
It's the drugs.
It's entirely possible that it is the carfentanil, but also
Maybe just the regular fentanyl.
maybe the regular fentanyl.
Or
No
maybe just
joke.
maybe just the marijuanacas.
2 weeks ago, 2 people at my work came saying that they knew someone who had died over the weekend, I think, from overdoses from fentanyl. So
Yeah, and we've got a story that we're going to pivot to about that as well. But
Yeah.
first, we'll talk about math, so we know how many people died.
Okay, so why great that teachers are need to know math. That makes sense. But how is having your English teacher a better mathematician help you in general pass your math tests?
I don't know that it does, and this seems kind of like one of the many progressive conservatives half-baked. Ford says a thing that he thinks will do well, and then someone else in government has to figure out how to make it happen, because that seems to be a recurring theme in the province. But the failing test scores are the thing that concerns me. We're having standardized testing, and it's roughly half the students are not passing, and that number has been getting lower year over year, even though the number of students enrolled in government schools are decreasing year over year. Teachers are being paid more year over year. And for some reason, standardized test scores, which focuses heavily on math, keep going down.
Yeah.
I have some theories about that, but I think this is a positive step if we're going to test the teachers. I'd like to see what the government rolls out for this.
I don't have
So
any kids.
first off, it's
Go ahead, Marty.
it's my understanding that this, as long as if the teacher is going to be teaching math at all, then they have to do this. But I thought if they're not doing any mathematics, then they don't need to do this test. So I thought that this testing for teachers is specifically teachers that will be teaching math.
And I would love to see that. And they're talking about all new teachers, in order to get a license to teach in province of Ontario because you literally can't do anything without a government license, including work for a government institution.
Right.
All
So I
new
mean,
teachers
I
will
get
have to
that.
pass their standardized testing, which I'm in favor of this, and I'm in favor of all teachers having to pass these tests. We have other public servants that have to pass proficiency examinations regularly. We have private industry that has to pass regular examinations.
They have to recertify.
Yeah, I see no problem with doing this to teachers, and I don't see that it needs to be anything more advanced than the EQAO testing. I don't know what the government's going to end up doing because the education minister in Ontario said that the current standardized test scores are unacceptable, and they're going to consult with the unions, the teachers, and the parents in order to determine how they can improve these scores. And part of that will possibly be some sort of testing for teachers. But in my opinion, the EQAO test is good enough. If they can pass grade 9 math, then they're fine. The exception maybe being if they're teaching grade 10 math.
Then they should be able to pass that. Yeah.
Well, one would think that you'd have proficiency in the subject that you're trying to teach.
Yeah.
I would think that you would have proficiency in all of the subjects that are required in order to graduate in Ontario with a secondary school diploma.
Yes,
Right.
but I mean, if you're the gym teacher, I don't necessarily expect you to get like 90s in your English or French or something like that. But you should be.
No, I expect you to because you're a government agent and indoctrinating my children in a government education facility.
Andrew, you gotta take down your expectations like 2 notches there, man. 2 notches at least.
Yeah, the fact that it's government, but they should they should be able
government
to.
is why it should be held to a higher standard, in my opinion. If you're going to have,
I don't
other
disagree,
trades
but yeah.
Teaching in general teaching in general is a very well-paying job here in this province with little to no oversight. There's very little measurable job performance. So
well, your job performance is your students, which may or may not be completely in the teacher. Like, let's be honest, it's not 100% in the teacher's hands how well their students do. It's only it's only like a inkling as to how good of a teacher they are.
Right. And these standardized tests are not every year. So there's only certain years where they do these standardized testing, and it's based on previous teachers' performance as well as just the current years that's teaching the year of the standardized testing. So there's very little performance metrics for teachers today. So they're getting paid well with zero feedback in terms of performance. Like anybody else in the private sector, you get your raises, you get your promotions and that based on your proficiency at your job. Teachers have very little insight into their proficiency at their job. So to me, the fact that, okay, I have no idea how they are as a teacher, but at least they know the topic that they're teaching, it's at least something.
Yeah, I'm with Marty on that. I mean, real libertarian hours abolish government school systems, and these people can all go work in the private sector. But that's not a realistic outlook, which I recognize. But
I don't have any kids in the system, so I can't speak to this. But I've heard
you're
jokes
paying for kids in the system.
No, but this is where I'm going.
And you always will be.
Yes, this is very true. A couple years back, I heard people joke about like the new math or something. Is that a thing, or is that just a joke out there? Because if that's a thing, then
that's a thing.
Then maybe we got to look at how they're teaching math now. Throw that out because apparently it sucks, and go back to the old way because apparently that got better scores.
So that happened under, I believe it was under the Wynne government. They implemented the new math. As soon as they did that, all of the scores dropped. So the Wynne solution to that.
Let's call it by its right name, because for people like Benny and everyone out in podcast land, we're talking about Common Core, which is a system of teaching how to do math.
It's Common Core is the U.S. is the name for it in the U.S., not Canada.
Well, we don't just call it new math.
Yes, we do.
I don't think we have it. Yeah, I think we do.
well, that's
sometimes we call it nouveau math.
Yeah.
So anyway, carry on, Marty.
So our scores dropped, and so the Wynne government looked at it and said, look, we made a change to this new teaching style. All of the scores have gone down. So we will address this. We will now teach the new math for an extra half an hour per day. We need to do more of the thing that is doing
That is failing
nothing.
worse.
Yes.
Oh
The thing
my
that's doing
God.
worse, we must do more of that. And so that was the previous government's solution to this problem, was to continue and double down on the shittiness. So hopefully,
we're
as
still-
part of the
We're still working on that bad program then, right?
that is correct.
They have-
That is one of the
okay.
things that the Ford government has said they're going to look at revising the curriculum on. But for now, yes, we are just doing extra time of the shitty method.
Oh, for
Yeah.
fuck's sakes. I looked it up. It actually does have a name. It's called Discovery Math. It's
That's
a different
it.
name.
Discovery
Oh
Math.
my
Yeah.
God.
BS.
Okay.
There.
Yeah. Common Core is the U.S. name.
Apologies. I thought it was Common Core. Apparently, that is the U.S. name for the system that we are teaching, and what we call Discovery Math. This
It
is
sounds very useless.
Isn't that that
Maybe,
space
maybe
shuttle
whoever
blew up?
came up with it should discover a way to pull their head out of their ass.
I mean,
It's
considering
very
it was the
bad.
Wynne government, it was probably a pedophile. I think we just found
History
pedophile
does
up with
that.
our
That's but true.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean the teacher should absolutely be testing out regularly on the subjects they're teaching. Like that goes without saying, I think.
I mean, yes, I support that, but if we're going to have to be forced to have my tax dollars pay for your children to get a government-sponsored indoctrination, then I want the people that are doing it to be of the highest caliber, as we're paying them a boatload of money.
Or we just find the person that is the highest caliber, record their lectures, and distribute them across the internet to all of the classrooms.
If
So that
only
every
there was a
kid
way
can
to
have,
do that.
so that every kid has the best teacher that exists.
Well, that's a good reason to pivot as any. Let's talk about the Ontario student walkouts and some of the reasons why they're skipping school. I mean, walking out to strike for their rights. Also,
So reason number
Isn't that a
one, because
thing?
the teacher told them to.
Yeah.
Well, one of the topics that has come up, and I don't recall which of the CBC articles it is in. I think it's in the Ottawa High School ones. They have concerns over the e-learning proposals that the Ford government is making about having them use online lecture methods in order to learn information that's repetitive. So you could almost have one person give a lecture on a topic who was good at explaining it, and then they could go and deal with a real teacher if they have follow-up questions, or they can deal with a consultant online that's filling a role for multiple students that don't have access to the best quality teachers in their particular region.
Given that these kids like to do everything else online and pretty much live their entire life as, shut-ins online, you think they would be all for this?
I'm totally for the, and I mean, like, this is how universities work, and I'm sorry, Ottawa high school students, if you think that teachers in university, if professors are going to give two shits about what you think about their class, you're wrong, and you will fail their course, because that's how real life works, and university is a closer approximation to real life.
Yeah, I actually think this is a really good idea in terms of helping prepare these kids for university, where your education, like, you are independently responsible for your own education. And so by doing sort of one course per semester where they're doing it online, where they're kind of responsible to learn it themselves through utilizing the resources available to them, I think it's actually a great way of slowly transitioning them towards university life.
Well, and to the real world, when was the last time you had an improvement course in your field where you went somewhere and sat in a classroom with a professor? All of my personal development is done through online self-learning.
You are not part of a union.
I am not part of a union, no. I guess that's true. The only time that I teach the only time that I teach actual classes is union employees. So I suppose that is a valid point.
Yeah, as when I was in construction, anything and everything was, except for WMIS. I think WMIS was the only thing that's done online. Everything else, and it was done online at the union hall, but everything else was in classroom with an instructor.
I just did my WMIS, and that was online, at least.
Yeah, but everything else
Yeah.
was in class with an instructor who used to be part of the union. So, yeah.
My point being that they're going to have to get used to this. This is, with the exception of trades, which I don't imagine a lot of these high school students are going to be going into since they're being pushed towards post-secondary educations. I imagine they're going to be doing a lot of their future learning through some sort of online curriculum delivery where they'll be watching a recorded presentation on YouTube or Khan Academy and not sitting in a classroom with 25 to 28 of their peers.
How much carbon do we put into the atmosphere to bus these kids to these teachers?
Yeah.
It's a very good point.
Mind blown.
You know, I remember in my high school, I don't remember the reasoning for whatever reason, but like there was supposedly a walkout plan that people were trying to organize and stuff like that. And so the administrators at the school, like they found out about it. And so they issued like a statement to all the high school kids and all the families and that saying that like, yeah, there's a walkout plan for this day. Any kid who walks out is immediately suspended for 5 days.
The difference that 20 years will make.
Yeah.
If your
And not a
walkout
single
had been-
person walked out.
if your walkout had been in support of the teachers, then they would have let it.
Yeah.
Well, and this
That's
has been a thing that's been going on in Queen's Park the past week or so, is that the Ford government is saying that the unions and the teachers are using the students as pawns and encouraging them to skip class and make their political demonstrations, and the teachers unions are saying that that's not the case. But all of the communication that I've seen related to this from all of the school boards is all to the effect of, there are various groups that are planning walkouts on these dates and times. We encourage our students to, peacefully participate in democratic processes and be involved in what's going on in the world around them. Not, if you skip class, you're going to get a suspension.
Yeah, and I'm all for, like, if the kids really believe this, like, truly, then I support them walking out and doing what they should do on anything. But I think if you went up to them and asked them to articulate why it is they're walking out, the vast majority of them will either just give you, word for word what was dictated to them by the teacher, or have absolutely no idea what they're doing because they just want to not go to school.
I think they could walk out if you let them. First, I'd ask them 3 questions. If they wanted to walk out, I think they should be asked 3 questions. What is the average wage in Ontario? What is the average teacher's wage in Ontario? And what is their share of provincial debt?
What?
Because like you take the provincial debt, you divide it by the population of Ontario, and everyone's share of the debt, like if divided up equally, would be $24,000.
Yeah, but
so like these kids, they're told one side of a story by unionized employees, and the thing just stinks.
Oh, it absolutely does. And if you read the article we've got from the CBC with the Ottawa student quotes, they're just repeating the talking points that have been in the media and have been being pressed by the teachers union. They're concerned about the cuts to the autism funding, which at some point we should talk about that because we haven't yet. They're concerned about the e-learning proposals, and they're concerned about the increases in class size, which we've already discussed. Class sizes are not being increased any more than they were 10 years ago. They're just being returned to the size at which they were, because we've seen the smaller class sizes don't make a significant impact on student outcomes.
It's because the teachers don't care anymore. Like going back to the thing that Marty said before, if there's no way to measure your success, then how do we know if we have a good teacher or a bad teacher? And
it doesn't matter. Even if we
thing.
knew that it was a good teacher or bad teacher, we cannot reward the good teacher more than the bad teacher because it's a union environment.
Right.
But
I was going to ignore
you-
the whole union thing
Yeah,
because that's
but
just a mess in its own.
If you owned a restaurant and you pissed off as many customers as kids fail or get D's, you would quickly go out of business.
Well, again, real libertarian hours, if the government were treated like a private business, it would be out of business. And
Tim.
I would do everything in my power to support that.
I'm also gonna here's where it gets even better. If as many kids failed or get D's relative to the testing standard that you create.
Yeah.
So like as a teacher, I write the test that the kids are failing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No one said they're failing the teacher's test.
Determines my
performance. Standardized test. They're saying they're
the standardized testing is created by an arm of the province's education system. It's not like the outside.
It's not the bad teacher making that. That's just the government doing that. I'm saying, like,
but in terms of their individual class scores,
right? But we don't know if they're failing those or not. Do we?
Yeah.
Is that a thing?
No one fails stuff in school any longer. They just get passed on to the next.
Yeah. So that they just ultimately fail at life.
Which, I mean, they were doing that before. It just takes longer for it to catch up to them now.
Well, yeah, and then they become a burden on the taxpayer or a ward
kind
of the
like
state.
The rest of the students.
Yeah.
The misunderstanding, and I can empathize with these students. I remember being in the 9th grade and having to do the civics course, and I thought, wow, communism, that sounds like everybody gets treated the same. Everybody has what they need. That sounds like a great system of government. Because I didn't understand how economics worked, or taxes, well, and that was the thing, because like 13-year-old me thought that was a great. Everybody gets treated equally. Everybody gets the same outcomes. Everybody gets what they need. That sounds like a great system.
It still sounds like a great system.
Except that I've subsequently learned all of the other things about reality, like the complaint by.
Yeah, everyone waits for hours in line for bread.
Yeah. Well, let's take the complaint of one of the students, this Nasima Muraf, who's a grade 11 student in Ottawa, and yada yada. I'm walking out of school because I don't care about my education, but I don't want future generations to have to do math, chemistry, physics online. We really need our teachers in the classroom to teach us. Having a teacher online from a private company who doesn't really care about our well-being to teach us isn't really what we want to see. I'm sorry. Your teachers in your classroom also don't care about you.
Yeah.
I thought the exact same thing when I read that comment. I'm like, who says the teacher today cares about them?
Your teacher doesn't care about you. The only person that cares about you is you, except in this case, because apparently you don't understand this. But I forgive you because you're in the 11th grade and life hasn't explained this to you yet. It will. The lesson will be harsh and you will understand. But in the meantime, enjoy your taxpayer-funded money.
Yeah. First of all, like, not everyone needs to know chemistry. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's one thing. But anyway, I was looking for what you said, Marty, about like the kids aren't passing the tests that you make yourself. And so I was Googling this for this article. And I was Googling Ontario Teachers Union suggests lowering standards. And I was like, article here, Teachers Union and Ontario proud accused of breaking election rules. No, that's not it. Conrad Black, National Post, 2017. In response to falling test results, Teachers Federation proposes ending testing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Surely it's the test that's the problem.
Away.
Yeah.
I think we need to start a new segment on the show called "Those Teachers."
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this is like when police are told that they really need to reduce crime. So like in the States and probably Canada too, but I know I've read articles about it happening in the States where they stop reporting crimes. They just like if they catch someone with burgled goods, they just grab the goods, tell them to take a hike. You know?
Yeah. I think that all government is a waste of taxpayer money.
Isn't that the complete opposite?
I gotta find it.
Like,
the quote.
Cops going out and giving out tickets for stupid things.
Yeah.
Can we have too many road pirates? Yeah. Like, can we stop burglaring people in their houses, or get that stopped and stop giving out tickets?
Well, yeah. Like when you were in your organization that you belong to, like, want to monopolize the use of force and policing, illegal behavior, and then you just don't. That's kind of screwed.
And then you create a system where the students don't get the education they need, so they have to fall into a life of crime or become totally reliant on government.
Yeah. I think I'd like to quote the NDP and say, fuck the police.
So I want to look at the quote here from Aileen Aiden, who is a grade 12 student. The changes Doug Ford made to our education system are really ableist and classist.
Oh,
so
yeah, that's another good. That is
I'm not entirely certain why she's so upset. If the changes that he made are fake and made up, why does it matter?
Yeah. How are they ableist? Like,
because it disproportionately awards people that work hard.
That's not disproportionate. You work harder, you get more.
Is it the kind of thing where being on time is racist?
Yeah.
Oh,
yes.
Fuck.
Let's look at some of the cuts that are happening. This is from the Toronto Sun article. So obviously the knee-jerk reaction from the media and the teachers union is that, oh my God, the class sizes are going to be increased by 6 people. It's going to go from 22 to 28, and everyone's going to fail all the tests, and no one's going to get into university, and you're all going to live in a van down by the river.
All right, before you continue, aren't they doing that already? So what's the difference?
Yeah, but now it's the
just save money.
Ford government's fault.
Yeah.
So
if he agrees with something that Wynne said or did, it's automatically his fault whether he started the initiative or not. That's how it works.
Well, let's look at some actual numbers, because this is the part that matters. So the plan to reduce the number of teaching positions in Ontario that will result in the increase in class sizes in intermediate and high school grades. No changes to the junior grades. I think up till the 5th or 6th grade, they're going to remain unchanged at 20 students apiece, something like that. And the intermediate grades go up from like 23 to 24 students, and then high school students go from 22 to 28 in class. All they're going to do is not hire 3,000 teachers when they retire. That's it. When 3,000 teachers retire, they're just not going to replace them. This is roughly the same as the number of teachers that leave the school system every year anyway.
So that's huge, huge. Like, this is going to cripple it with this 1.9% cut or slow reduction. You know what the problem is? Do you know what solved that problem? If they really wanted to do something, they could give up their pensions, because then they wouldn't retire.
Slash it.
I mean, that's also true. But so there's 126,000 teachers in Ontario. We're going to have 123,000 teachers in Ontario. That's do you know how many teachers there were 15 years ago in Ontario? 112,000.
Yeah, and grades are going down.
And the number of students enrolled is going down. The number of students has decreased. The test scores have decreased, but the number of teachers has gone up, and the amount that we pay them has gone up.
Well, I guess because people have realized that they got to send their kids to a private school if they want to get them any sort of decent education.
I would absolutely I have all of the Ron Swanson drops for this. Maybe not this one. I thought
wait right here, audience.
We'll be back.
I thought I had one for this too, but I mean the government shouldn't be doing this. The government has no business in education, because this is not education. This is government indoctrination to make these students, and it's working, reliant on the government to provide for them, because they think that if the government doesn't give them a teacher, that they're not going to be able to learn.
Tim?
Yeah, but there's this thing called the internet that they can learn on. Oh wait, they're against that. Sorry.
Oh,
my bad.
Ooh, I don't have my phone. Oh, I have a quote from the Minister of Education from South Africa. It's pretty bad. Yeah, no, you can get fake what they call grade 12 is matric. So when you matric, you get your graduation certificate. So you can buy fake certificates online, and they're really good. They look just like ours. And these people also need to make a living. That was her quote. It was pretty bad. I have to share it with you guys because this is ridiculous. Sorry. Back to regular programming.
Back to what are we drinking?
So here's
what exactly will you be cutting? And how much of it? And can I watch you do it while eating pork cracklings?
Yes.
So I wonder if anyone has looked at the correlation of the test performance and demographics. So as the demographics
that's racist. That's racist.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Gavin beat me to it. Demographics are racist. You can't do that.
Just looking at data is racist.
Unless it's pointing out that white people being on time, then it's totally fine. But like, yeah, everything is racist.
Even collecting data is racist.
Yeah.
Admitting that data can be collected is racist.
Yeah. Calling it data is racist.
Yeah.
Is it data?
There's a white guy on Star Trek.
Yeah, and certainly don't stop kids out on the streets that are up to no good to collect data, because that is definitely racist.
I got in one little fight and my mom got scared.
I heard they're remaking that.
It won't be as good.
No, it won't.
William Schmidt.
They're remaking it with like somebody else, like.
Yeah.
Probably his kid. So it'll be terrible.
People are idiots.
Moving right along. Let's talk about BC. I know Ian is only here in spirit this evening. He was busy wage cucking for the 12th day in a row or something. BC government to consider relief, in quotes. I like that. BC government to consider relief for record gas prices. Gas relief from gas. Do you suffer from gas in BC? The government has a solution for you.
Diapers.
Well, so Metro Vancouver gas prices hit $1.64 this past week. My proposed solution to this is to stop living in the Metro Vancouver area. But apparently the government is going to help the people that are hit hardest by this and are unable to now afford gas. This is the result of
like how much of their gas price is government taxes and carbon tax and everything else?
52 cents on the liter.
Weird.
Well, I don't know. I guess we'll never solve this problem.
Yeah, it almost sounds like if they maybe just reduce the tax, that people would be able to afford things.
I like this. The government is blaming a lot of people except for the government.
That sounds about right.
So this is pretty good. So the premier of BC says that he can't explain why the 12-cent a liter increase is costing an additional 14 cents at the pumps. Apparently, the retailers have helped themselves to an additional 2-cent retail margin.
Bastards.
So
it's like they know how to run a business.
The cost of gas is remarkably low right now. Like the futures
cost
market
of oil.
Gas is the unrefined product. That part is low, but the actual retail price of refined gasoline is very high right now. And the government added a 12-cent a liter tax on it. And the retailers are like, oh, well, we're putting it up 12 cents. May as well put it up 14. Get that margin. So the government has managed to increase their tax and is now confused why private companies have decided that they should also make a little bit more money.
Well, as energy prices go up, they need to increase their, they need to increase what they bring in as well.
Yeah, because it's almost like their operating costs are going to go up as a result of having to pay more taxes to run their fleet's vehicles.
Now, did you have a different article up before, or was this article edited?
This is the article that I remember reading this morning.
So, okay, I guess maybe it was the analyst from Gas Buddy that was talking about how there is several factors at play, including a shortage of gas across BC, caused by 2 refineries in the state running at reduced rates. So it's almost like if they could somehow get more capacity, more product that they could.
If only there was a way to easily, efficiently ship refined petroleum products.
Yeah, through some sort of giant pipe that cut across the country.
Oh,
yeah,
I got
like a big tube.
Helicopter.
Like a big tube.
Oh, you mean the internet?
A big tube that bisected a mountain.
Yeah, but not plastic, because plastic straws are bad. So we'd have to make it out of something else.
Yeah. Oh, metal. We can use metal.
Yes. Yeah. It's like something like that perhaps could help BC's gas crisis here.
Wait a second. We're in? No. They didn't want us to do that. No, that was BC, right?
No, I think you know what? I think the government might even own something like this that they might actually be able to help with, but they just don't.
The government
that'd be the federal government. And
are you sure?
I think that all government is a waste of taxpayer money.
It is. Yeah. So
now let's also laugh at the concept that they're going to try to help people out by giving them some of their tax money back.
Oh, well, we got a couple of things to laugh at. So the first one we're going to laugh at is the current government. The current NDP government is blaming the previous Liberal government because the Liberals increased the gas taxes by 15 cents when they were in power, and the current NDP government is only increasing gas taxes by 2 cents. Now we can laugh at the NDP giving people their money back, allegedly.
Yeah. Just use less gas.
Well, and there are people that are saying that as a result of this, people are using less gas and heating their homes less and selecting different vehicles, and in some cases using alternative methods of transportation, although for some reason that might be difficult outside of places like Metro Vancouver, where they have a massive commuter system.
Isn't that called suffering? I think with the word some people are suffering.
It is
only a little.
Oh, what's that? Your food costs so much? Just don't eat so much. Yeah, that'll help.
It's difficult for me to walk from here to there when there's a mountain in the middle.
Yeah. It'd be way easier if they just built a pipeline.
A pipeline would help. Less taxes would help. But maybe
people
you're
fit in, actually they do fit in pipelines. Those things are huge. You can ship people that way.
Ooh, you know,
allegedly.
No, we should not. If you live in BC, you stay in BC. I'm sorry you brought this on yourselves.
What if we ship them into the ocean?
Then we'd have a giant island of garbage people.
It may actually be more efficient than a helicopter.
I can live with that.
Yeah, I'd be willing to hear your proposal on this.
All right, I'll put something together.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about Toronto some more, because we've talked about Ontario, but we haven't talked about the center of the universe. Bullets fired at a home of Toronto City Councillor John Fillion and CBC host somebody. I think, how do you say this? Anna Maria Tremonti? I don't know. CBC.
Yeah.
I used to listen to her when I was like 6.
So she's an ITAL, right?
I have no idea.
Tremonti? I mean, that sounds...
Isn't that the 3 ships that they sailed to...
The Maria and the Tremonti? Yeah, pretty sure that is.
Yeah. So what are they doing in Ohio?
Yes.
So I like the quotes from this guy. So like this follows an incident 3 weeks ago in which a man with a weapon attempted unsuccessfully to force his way into his home. Then 3 weeks later, somebody shoots up his place. His quote, "I suspect I have been targeted."
I don't know.
Like, it's astute observations like that make me suspect that this guy has the intellect that makes him unusually suited for politics.
Oh, just wait. It gets better. A quote, "I am also confident that our police service is using considerable skill and ability to fully investigate these incidents."
Well, yeah, I mean,
there's more examples of that intellect.
I mean, really, all they have to do is call up the RCMP and be like, "Hey, so who did you issue an ATT for my address for the other night?" Right? Like, that's all they have to do, right?
I'm just glad they didn't have silencers.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's very little detail, and there's been no follow-up or release by Toronto Police Service that I was able to find that had anything to do with this. Fillion's been a counselor in various wards in Toronto for the last 20 years. Apparently before that he was a journalist.
Wow. Is he trying to get all the hatred?
That's okay. Guess what he covered as a journalist primarily? The education beat.
Oh, God.
He primarily reported on education. So
maybe it's a disgruntled teacher that's after him.
A strong possibility. Yeah. No other details.
Why? Teachers don't get negative coverage on the CBC?
No, not anymore. They don't. Maybe back then.
They've learned their lesson.
Yeah.
$600 million will get you quite a bit of good press.
Yeah.
Let's talk about something else my government is wasting my tax dollars on. National Post article. The federal government hunted for person who leaked Omar Kadara's $10.5 million settlement payment, according to internal reports. Privy Council office refuses to share any additional details.
I too would like to find this person so that we can give them a medal.
Yes.
Or beer.
Or a pipeline.
Yeah. Or a cape.
No, those things are fucking worthless in this country.
The first three words of that headline started off so promising, and then it continued.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is literally the most fact-finding that our government has done in its current incarnation.
It's funny because had any other government done this, these guys would have jumped on it with 2 feet. How could you be this whistleblower is supporting the people's right to know? And yeah, complete hogwash.
I hope the government doesn't find this person because.
Yeah, I want whoever did this to stay in government and continue giving us the real news about what's going on with the government. But there's a bunch of other smaller details in the article that I guess I'd either missed when we talked about this in the past, or that hadn't previously been published. Like the fact that the government accidentally put $10.5 million in the wrong bank account.
Well, that's what I read.
Yeah.
I haven't heard that before.
It certainly didn't go into my bank account.
Apparently, this is what started this whole process that involved the whistleblower. Is one of the government departments responsible for doing a wire transfer of $10.5 million, put it into an unnamed third party's bank account, and then the next day someone else caught the mistake and had to figure out how to reverse the transaction and submit it to the correct bank account. But
do you imagine if that was you and you just look at your online thing and you're like, what the fuck?
I would run to the bank.
Do you know how fast I would have been going to the bank to cash that out?
Oh yeah, transfer it to another account if I had to. Just whatever, like just buy all the stuff immediately.
Yes, I will take 1 truck of gold bricks, please, and thank you.
Yeah,
and 1 dump truck to carry all of those bricks.
Yeah, and one of those 55-gallon drums of 5.56 green tips.
Why not a skid?
I don't know if the bank has that, but all right.
Why not a skid?
The internet does.
So it turns out that there were at least 6 government departments involved in this transfer, which
and they still made a mistake.
I mean, how they managed to have this many people involved in it, but also that they somehow managed to deposit $10.5 million in the wrong place. Which I mean, I guess.
Well, it would go up exponentially. The chance of a
that's true. The more agencies involved, the more likely it screw up. Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess for the government, it's
the payment or the bureaucracy.
The payment. It only took them 2 days. It took them 1 day to pay it wrong and 1 day to fix it.
Oh wow! Is that
efficient actually for government?
Yeah,
remarkably efficient. The unknown third party thing is interesting. This is some speculation, I think, on the part of the National Post author, is that it's possible that they were trying to transfer the money to a third party to remove the ability of any American soldiers' families to be able to seek damages against Kadar and get money.
And so by third party, do you mean like directly to ISIS?
No, I mean like Mr. ISIS. Like,
okay.
like some other fake person, I think.
Yeah.
So I do find that very suspicious. This whole thing is weird, and kudos to the individual that brought it to the media's attention.
Yeah.
Shall we talk about weed?
Yeah.
Weed.
We'd be a lot cooler if we did.
No.
Going just quickly on the Kadar thing, I like the photo of the guy that's protesting with like "No money for killers" sign. It's like
good.
only in this country is that a controversial sign.
Yeah, sadly. I mean, I'd like to, use a little bit of this whole marijuana thing, or at least some of the byproducts of it, to deal with some killers. Because hemp will save the world.
I didn't understand where you were going with that, but it's a rope.
Yeah.
Took me a second. Yes. Rope-powered helicopters for everyone.
Yeah.
Anyway, onward. Talking about marijuana, we're going to go to Nova Scotia. This is in global news. Nova Scotia woman who tested positive for cannabis behind the wheel plans to launch constitutional challenge. Hey, so Section 7 in the Charter is apparently good for something as long as it's marijuana.
Does that mean that if this passes, we can challenge it on alcohol too now? Just asking for a friend.
Yes and no. And I don't think that this is actually, and I mean, I am not a constitutional law expert by any means, but Section 7 is really, really super straightforward. It's legal rights. Everyone has the right to life, liberty, and security of person, and the right to not be deprived thereof, except in accordance with the principles of fundamental justice. Sounds relatively straightforward.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how driving when you've been taking THC is interfering with your right to life, liberty, or security of person.
So I'll give the quick summary. The issue here is that she was not impaired. She tested, and the police, she was they did their investigation and determined that she was not impaired, yet she still had her license suspended for several days. And so she's like, I committed no crime, and yet I still had liberties taken away from me.
And I contend that driving is a privilege and not something that you're entitled to. So
yeah, I mean, this
decides that you shouldn't get to drive.
They also confiscated her property.
Yeah, so the same thing kind of applies with alcohol, though, because as you approach the legal limit, there is a buffer zone where you have not yet broken the law, but you get a temporary suspension.
Yes, and I think that that case would fall under the same precedent that's being set here.
Yeah, so you have a temporarily suspended privilege. Because, yeah, driving is not a right. If it was, we wouldn't need driver's licenses. We would just be able to drive anywhere and everywhere all the time and wouldn't have to pay taxes to do so.
Driving is a right. Using public roads is not.
Fair. Driving on your own property or someone else's that allows you to. But, yeah, it's dumb. I mean...
It is dumb, and I wish this person the best of luck. The agents of the state, in my opinion, have clearly overstepped their bounds in this. This person should not have had their license suspended or their vehicle impounded, and it shouldn't have incurred any cost, even though in this case it did. And I hope that they take the government to court to seek damages and win over this.
But also, maybe they shouldn't be driving high. Even a little high. Yeah, but...
Even though it'd be cooler if they did.
You get to a point, though, right? Like, I mean, either you did or you didn't, and I'll get that. But, like, if you got close to that line, that's maybe an indication that you need to change your behavior a little bit.
Well, and this is part of the problem, is they don't say how much THC was actually present in the test, and they don't say what the threshold is. So there's not a lot of information about how close to the line or even where the line is. They just... So the only thing that's there is if the if the driver shows 0.02 nanograms of THC in a saliva sample, but we don't know where that compares to where the machine said it was and where this person was. And the police have subsequently retracted any charges or any other issues with this person.
Yeah.
With the exception of you're still paying your impound fee.
But they've already made
it doesn't. So the machine tells if it can detect as low as 0.2, but if the machine, all it does is says if THC is present or not. There is not a 0.8 like we have with
alcohol. Yeah.
Like it's almost like we talked about this when they introduced this, and we said that there's not going to be a way to easily do this because the technology is not there yet.
It sounds
so
like
what they can do.
It sounds just a second. It sounds like there's another state ran, arm of the state that just isn't up to date with their testing of their training. Like it sounds like someone was out there, ran the test, and they got a positive, and then just booked them, without really understanding what they were doing.
Yeah.
So how it works is that is the roadside test that says whether or not THC is present, and then if yes, then they have to go through a sobriety test. And the sobriety test is like testing, the normal dexterity, balance, and that kind of stuff.
I still don't like that though.
She passed it though.
She passed.
Yeah,
and so
but I mean that
was deemed to be not impaired.
But then lost her license and was fine.
Yeah, then they should let her go. I mean but still, I don't know. This whole thing is crazy because we really do need to work out a more scientific thing. Because I don't like the up to the judgment of the officer to do a field sobriety test because that's subjective.
Yep.
Like it needs to be some sort of scientific based where it's a definitive. Here is the line. You're either on this side of the line or that side of the line. And if they want to put in like a gray area like we do right now with alcohol where you get a temporary suspension, then put that in because I think that's fine. But at least that it's known where that line is. And if you continue to act in a certain way and toe that line, then there are consequences for it. Right?
Yeah. I know there needs to be a simple, quantifiable measurement that they can do. And they don't have that today.
I can't imagine it being very difficult for someone just to come up with a metric where you could say, well, this much THC in your system is equivalent to this much alcohol, and then just shove it under the same legislation. And
if we've been doing
rules in place,
sobriety tests that have primarily been focusing on alcohol consumption, like alcohol consumption and pot consumption have totally different effects. Like your balance may not be impaired at all when you've smoked a little pot, but like your reaction time and everything else, so you may be able to walk a straight line perfectly.
But it'll take you longer to do it.
Yeah, or you react slower, but like if they aren't testing for that, then how are they ever going to know? I don't know. The whole thing is dumb. Just don't smoke and drive. Simple.
All right, let's do the last one. We're going to talk about more drugs. This is in the London Free Press. Opiate overdose spikes worst it's ever been, health official warns. This is primarily in southwestern Ontario, Lambton, Middlesex, Oxford, and Brant counties. Perth County is impacted slightly, and I wouldn't be surprised if there aren't more. In those particular counties, we are seeing an increase in overdoses due to opiates, particularly one of our favorites, fentanyl, because they're cutting other drugs with fentanyl. And that's killing people because people are doing drugs, including fentanyl.
So are they calling it an overdose only if they die? Or is it like anyone that like comes close to that but recovers?
No, so it's only if they go over, because if you look at the infographic, it does say 9 overdoses, 1 death. So
yeah, it's
because maybe there's a spike in overdoses because we have Narcan and people are now able to overdose several times in one day.
Oh, well, let's talk about that because there's...
I don't know if that's what's going on, but...
Well, that has gone on.
Yeah, at least once that's gone on.
No, I'm saying with the fentanyl.
You know, I'm noticing that these people are using prescription drugs here, and doctors have a license to prescribe drugs. We should remove their license. Yeah,
but doctors are infallible. It's probably it's probably the pharmacist's fault. That's who it is for sure.
I think we need more laws cracking down on doctors being able to prescribe drugs. That's the solution here.
For sure. Agreed.
Yeah. The only logical one.
Yeah.
And I mean, especially things like fentanyl, like these assault drugs.
We should ban medication.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Not medication, just drugs.
Not just but like the assault drugs.
Yeah.
Like fentanyl. And
like anything with a forward grip.
I was gonna say with a cool name,
like those pre-packaged ones where like you could buy like 50 pills in one little thing and they just pop them out. Like nobody needs to do drugs that quickly. They should be limited to 5 pills per sheet at most.
Let's talk about some things that they are doing. So this is from one of the doctors in London. Apparently, street drugs are bad. So in London, they have supervised drug use sites where they have test strips available so the drug users can test their drugs for the presence of fentanyl. They're also indicating that drug addicts should have someone with them to make sure that they're safe and have multiple doses of naloxone on hand should they overdose.
Multiple.
Well, they're finding that a standard sized dose of Narcan in some cases isn't enough to stop an overdose because of the potency of some of the drugs that these people are taking.
Jesus Christ.
I feel like if you need more than one naloxone, that's nature's way of telling you it's time to slow down on the methamphetamines.
Nature slow down.
Or just go all out and not have naloxone and just let it take its course.
If you need more than one Narcan to stop the OD, you probably shouldn't be doing that.
It's like a fire extinguisher. If you got to use more than one, call the fire department.
Well, and like if you do, I hope their response time is better than 32 minutes, because it's not going to last.
Like this is incredibly sad that there's this many people that are, and this is just the the increase that we're talking about here.
Yeah. There. Well, other
similar. I mean, we were making.
We don't have real numbers for this because the public health agencies are not keeping accurate counts of overdoses and deaths due to overdoses. So, like, the Public Health Agency in Canada has an estimate for 2017 that approximately 4,000 Canadians died in apparent opiate-related overdoses. The fact that we don't keep track of this is kind of a cause for concern.
Why is it such a specific number if it's still an estimate?
An estimated 3,996 Canadians died from opiate overdoses. That's a incredibly
very specific estimate.
Yeah, very. But they only have estimates. I don't understand why these numbers are not being tracked, and at the same time, I don't understand why we're providing supervised drug use sites where we're telling them to check their drugs for fentanyl, and then here's some naloxone just in case. Like, I feel like we're enabling their bad behavior.
That's the societal trend now. Have you not noticed? If you have a delusion, we have to give you what you want. You're delusional. You think this, so we have to cater to your delusion. You're a drug addict. We got to make sure that you live on and continue being a drug addict. That's what our society's turned into. There's no more, self-discipline or anything. Like, if people, to boil it down, if you're fat, in today's society, if that was something that people really were focused on, oh, you're fat. Oh, let me you can pay $5 and you'll get twice as much food as a skinny person because you have a disability. You're fat. We have to feed you now more. That's what our society's turned into.
I don't discount that.
I'd have to look into it more because I don't know enough about it, but I think it was Sweden that had an opioid issue, and they took the opposite approach of basically providing it to them and having like facilities that people could go and use, and it actually had a much higher success rate at getting people off. Like basically decriminalizing it and allowing people to go access government fentanyl kind of thing.
I think that was
fentanyl at the time, but
Portugal.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's been a few places that have done something similar.
But what they did was instead of policing it, they moved all that funding into social programs or other I guess quote unquote traditional ways of dealing with these issues. Which isn't what's happening here. What's happening here is they're continuing with the policing, and in addition to that, they're having safe sites.
I mean, I would much rather them just make it legal than make specific locations where they turn a blind eye. Right?
Well, we saw what they did with cannabis, right? You think they're going to make it like legal? Like they're going to tax it and then screw it up that way.
They're gonna fuck it up the same way.
Oh yeah, but at least if there was government fentanyl, it would get taxed for whoever would buy it. But
then you're gonna get more fentanyl.
Yeah, but I mean, like,
my problem as a recovering libertarian is like, if you want to go and do opiates, like, I think you're dumb, but I think you should be able to do that, and I also think you shouldn't cost me any money. But the recovering part of me is like, maybe we should exercise the authority of the state for something that benefits me and stop these people from doing narcotics.
But what does that accomplish, stopping them from doing narcotics?
I don't have to pay for their overdoses anymore or their safe injection sites.
Well,
wouldn't a simpler thing just not pay for their overdose or safe injection sites and let the fact that they've ruined their life deal with that on its own instead of paying however many thousands of dollars to
my tax dollars are still being used to cover these people's poor life decisions. Yeah. So if we can't have it so that they can just go and do what they want in the comfort of their own home, then I don't want them doing it because they're impacting my family's quality of life.
Yeah, no, I agree.
The problem is that someone that's ruined their life by doing this stuff is they're in a spiral where they're just going to keep doing it more and more because they have nothing else to look forward to. You know, that becomes their only escape from their ruined life kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean it's a difficult thing.
It's
and
hard.
Yeah. But yeah, like
it's not really. We have laws that stop people from doing unprescribed narcotics. So we should be enforcing those laws because if we're going to have agents of the state exercising force over people making decisions that only impact themselves, then I want them doing it in a way that impacts the law-abiding people in my family so that I'm not paying for these people's naloxone.
I call complete bullshit that the laws are preventing anyone from taking fentanyl. Anybody that wants fentanyl is getting fentanyl, and the people that don't want fentanyl aren't taking fentanyl. Like the law has nothing to do with it.
But I want absolutely every person that they find with fentanyl being put in jail, not in safe injection sites.
So I still see, when you say jail, I still see taxpayer paying for this person's putting money into this person. When quite honestly,
this is my dilemma. We can't have a nice society where these people can go off and do things without impacting me. So I want the agents of the state to do the thing that impacts me the least, which is enforce the laws that are on the books.
Yeah, and no, I see, like Andrew's saying, that if he's going to be spending the money anyways, he'd rather them spend it keeping them off the street than giving them a place to continue degenerate behavior and get away with it, even though it's still illegal. Because if you do it in this section here, we turn a blind eye to it.
Can we start a gulag?
I think we have a lot of land in the north that is not in use, so
I think we have to come up with another name for it to make it more palatable to the average person. But yes,
no, I like gulag. That's good. There is parts of northern Canada that are archipelago shaped. It would work.
All right. I mean, I'm in.
Like, because no one would be like down with, like, I don't know, prisons where they actually do work or something.
Just dig a pit and just drop them in the pit. The problem sorts itself out.
This one for me, I just have to do some more research on it, but I've seen some data from some other countries where they've taken approaches that have been successful. And if the data says that way can work, then I mean the current system of just trying to jail them is not working. So if there has been trials and successful runs in other countries, I'd be willing to look at that.
And you know what, Marty? I'm totally on board with you with that if we could do that, but we can't with our current government because they've demonstrated how badly they fucked up marijuana.
Our government has demonstrated they've been able to fuck up everything that they've touched. So why
do I want them to have more ability to do some other thing with other call it decriminalization of narcotics?
They're fucking up the police. They're fucking up the policing. They're fucking up the jail system as well. I mean, no matter what government service you use, it's going to be fucked.
I think that's probably
my dilemma. Is
if we look at like the Portuguese or the Nordic model, it works. And if you look at like the Duterte Philippines model, it also works. But we're stuck somewhere where we're not really doing either, and that's fucked. Right? Like, we're not being hard on the people, but we're not giving them the care that they need either. We're just spending money on stupid things and not really getting anyone off of them, not really somehow restricting their access or making it more difficult or anything. We're just, here's a place to do it safely. Here's more money. And in some cases, I mean, we were prescribing heroin to people because that was part of their recovery.
Still do that.
Yeah, but not really doing a whole lot to actually get them off of it, you know?
Pharmacy near my house.
Yeah, we need to pick one way or the other, not some weird hybrid system that doesn't do anything.
Right, and this is my dilemma, because I fully say if in an ideal world, in a nice homogenous society where everybody played by the same rule book, if you want to go and do opiates in the comfort of your own home, I totally support your doing opiates. But the moment that you impact me and my family or my tax dollars, and you start doing things that impact the rest of society and everybody else has agreed to play by the same rules, then you don't get to do that anymore, right? We need to have some system, whether we're going to have the Portuguese model or the Philippines model. I don't particularly care which, but they're going to have to do something because the current system isn't working. And the fact that the government can't tell us how badly it's not working because we don't have accurate statistics for any of this baffles me.
Yeah, but as soon as they begin to go down a place where they don't generate as much taxable income as you, or then they're already affecting you.
Well, again, this is the problem with the type of society we live in. And I recognize that we can't have a proper libertarian social order, but
because it takes discipline.
I'm telling you, the having the boot of the state put on some throats that are taking opiates would make me feel a little bit better about my situation.
Yeah, but don't throw them in jail at $110,000 a year. Jesus, but there's no good solution to this.
No, I think there is, and I think we declare it today. We are now starting new Rhodesia.
I wonder what the drug laws would have been like in Rhodesia. That's something to look up.
Yeah.
I bet Ian Smith would have said you could do all the drugs you want.
Yeah, but he wasn't going to pay for their health care.
Let's look at rapid fire feedback. We've got one. Is that a 4-star iTunes review?
Looks like
it. I think it's 4 stars. This is from iFrag Noobs. His title is Lollipop Rattle. Good podcast to listen to discussing the shit show politics, current events in Canada. Now, if you guys could please take whatever headset mic that's making that ever-present rattle, sounds like someone shifting a lollipop in their mouth over and over, present in almost every episode, take it out to the range and light it up, or at least give it an office space printer treatment. Otherwise, keep up the great work. I don't know what that rattle is. I feel like blaming Gavin for this and playing with gun parts during the show is probably the right answer.
I've heard that rattle, that's for sure.
Well, could be. But if you hear it now, I'm not playing with any gun parts, so then it's not me.
It's been good this episode. At least for me, I haven't noticed it. But yes, there has been background noise. And if you become a Patreon, we can maybe buy some people some better mics, some better headsets, and
Yeah.
maybe
Or you could just
hire a better intern.
Suck it up.
Wow.
At least we don't open our beers into the mic.
Often.
We should.
Often do that.
Yeah, there's only one podcast that does that, and they haven't recorded in quite a while.
It's because they hate their listener base.
Not pointing fingers.
Well,
I did mine before the show started.
I definitely had to open a beer mid-show, but I did it kind of over here, so it probably caught it on the mic. It probably wasn't far enough away that my noise gate got it. But anyway, let's see where everybody can find you on the show. Andrew, where can people find you on the internet?
You could reach me at andar.ca or betterandrew.biz. And I'm half tempted to buy ragnaroktactical.biz, but
you son of a bitch.
they had a sale on it. I was so tempted.
Oh,
You just sell better medical supplies. It'd be great.
There are no better medical supplies. You go to hell, sir. You go to hell. Gavin, where can everybody find you on the internet?
The best place you can find me is on Instagram at urbex_GTA. Or coming up, you'll find us all at Op Missile.
No.
And possibly teaching, well, not you, Benny, but the rest of us.
Yeah.
Or coming up,
Heathens.
there'll be some Stop the Bleed courses through Ragnarok where you'll find me there teaching you how to plug holes and stuff the right way, not with tampons.
Where were we? Marty, where can everybody find the show?
What do you have in the show notes today? Facebook, apparently. Facebook.com/Canadian Patriot Podcast.
Benny, where can everybody find you?
You can find me at bennylewis.ca. We just got in a new shipment of ETS cam loaders. We now have them in 45 as well as 9 and 40. And we have Safety On and the ABC of Guns, written by Yehuda Remmer, the Pew Pew Jew, in stock.
I enjoy that there's a guy called the Pew Pew Jew. I might need that book. It's pretty funny.
Let me know.
Tim, where can everybody find you? Tim's not here, man. You should get shirts from Tim's. Tim's good T-shirts on Facebook. They're quite good. You can find me at ragnaroktactical.ca. If you've listened to the show for this long, you should definitely use the discount code Patriot at checkout. It will save you some money on your order. We have lots and lots of quality medical supplies. Normally, this is the part of the show where we apologize to Rod Giltaka. I won't be apologizing to Rod this week. Instead, we'd like to remind everyone that it's Ian Smith's birthday.